All right, thank you for staying with us. The era of Nigeria importing oil products may be over as President Buhari has inaugurated the world's largest refinery in Ibeju-Lekki on Monday. The Dangote Refinery is set to provide about 650,000 barrels per day of crude oil, meeting its petroleum needs for Nigeria and also export to other African countries. The newly commissioned refinery is set to provide jobs to over 100,000 Nigerian youth by generating about $21 billion in revenue. During the inauguration, President Buhari noted that this is part of plans to achieve Agenda 2063, where all African countries would have an all-inclusive and sustainable socio-economic development over a 50-year period. Well, joining us via Zoom is the principal consultant of DRNL Consult Limited, Adirunke Onadeko. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here this morning.
Good morning.
Right. Now, let's get your perspective to the coming on board of this refinery. The president yesterday said that this will be a game changer for Nigeria's economy. And I'm wondering if you see from this perspective, knowing that this is a private venture.
Okay, so the exciting thing is that for over 20 years, we've known that we needed increased refining capacity. The government has tried severally to do the turnaround maintenance at the various refineries we have, and they have failed. There have been situations where even the Bureau of Public Enterprise had sold both the Kaduna and the Port Harcourt refinery to the Blue Star Group, which was the Dangote Otedola Transcorp consortium, and it was reversed when Yar'Adua came into power because it was done at the tail end of the Obasanjo regime. So, we've been holding our breath, and there have been so many stopgap opportunities like the modular refineries, the illegal refining and all of that, but this really is the game changer. The volume surpasses what the government even had, which was 445,000 barrels per day. And I mean, we're less than 10% of that, even production, if they were able to get the local refineries to work. So in terms of refining capacity, we've ticked the box. There are three things that work around petroleum products supply into a nation. First of all is the crude supply. Two is the refining capacity. The third thing is the access to US dollars. The refinery is situated in a free trade zone, so it's not on Nigeria territory. The crude is sold worldwide as in dollars. So the Dangote Group is going to buy from government in dollars, which would give dollars to the government. The good thing is that government can now make a decisive effort to channel their US dollars into productive sectors in the economy and make sure that there is dollar available to Nigerian businessmen so that they can also go and buy petroleum products from the Dangote Refinery to put into the local market. At the moment, NNPC is the single importer of PMS, for example. You would have to get an allocation from government to actually trade it. But because NNPC brings it in and pays in dollars through the central bank, Nigerian retailers and wholesalers are able to buy petroleum products in Naira. That will not be the case with the Dangote Group. People will have to buy in US dollars because the Dangote Group has borrowed in dollars, is trading in dollars, and has to pay back its loan in US dollars. So they will not be running this in Naira. So the government has a responsibility to ensure that there's availability of US dollars in the local banking system, enough for wholesalers and retailers to access dollars to do their business. If not, we're still going to have a bottleneck. And we will find out that it's other countries who have access to dollars that are coming in to buy the crude and the petroleum products that would be refined by the refinery. So we need to be sure that everybody plays their part so that we can have a good system and get the full value we're supposed to get from this new intervention in the petroleum products market.
All right, let's talk about the average Nigerian who who runs, I better pass my neighbor just by the roadside, or who runs Okada commercial motorcycle or a tricycle, as the case may be. From that window, let's talk about that average Nigerian, either in Kano or in Benue or in Akwa Ibom. Will this crude oil, or with the oil from, because we now have a refinery in Nigeria, yes, would this make fuel cheaper for the average Nigerian? Does this translate to that? Talk to us.
Okay, so the issue with petroleum products is it's a derivative of crude oil, and crude oil is benchmarked and priced in dollars. So no matter where you are in the world, crude will be bought in dollars. It's a petrodollar business, and the refined products will be priced through netback pricing in dollars. When you convert your dollars to local currency, the price is not going to change significantly from what we have. And I'll explain that in layers so that we don't get people confused. When the Dangote Refinery refines their petroleum products, they will be refining in Nigeria. So the cost of exporting crude to foreign refineries, as we had done in the past, will be removed. The cost of importing petroleum products into Nigeria will be removed from the total price. Also, the transfer, transshipment, NPA dues, and all of those things will be removed. So it will reduce somewhat, but the bulk of the price of petroleum products is not from shipping or transporting. It's from the actual cost of crude. So the bulk of the price remains the same. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that Nigerians are buying petroleum products now, especially PMS, subsidized. The government is paying a portion of it. Nobody is going to subsidize the petroleum products coming from the Dangote Refinery. So that portion that the government has been putting into the cost to reduce the cost to Nigerians will not be available and should not be available, because this is the right time and a great opportunity to remove subsidies and fully deregulate the oil and gas sector. So yes, there will be some reductions, but once subsidy is removed, there will be an additional cost to the cost. So we might see ourselves going higher than what the cost is now. So people shouldn't expect that there's going to be a lower fee for buying petroleum products. However, the fact that government is going to be saving a lot of money from not paying subsidies, we would see a lot of relief in other areas, healthcare, education, infrastructure, if the government decides to be prudent with the savings that they're going to get from subsidies. So there has to be a mechanism in place with the incoming government to ensure that there's a dashboard which states this is how much we're saving from shipping and all the ancillary costs that was involved when we were importing and exporting. And these are the savings from subsidy. And this is exactly how we plan to use this money to reduce the stress and the inconvenience and the additional cost of subsidy removal. If they have a dashboard that every month they should tell us that X amount has been saved, this is what we've used the money for. And for that reason, I don't understand why the Nigerian government has gone out of its way to borrow $800 million as a palliative for removal of subsidy. We will be having savings from not paying subsidies, and that should be deployed so that it's sustainable and so that we will start to reduce the debt we have to the international financial community.
Right. This matter of fuel subsidy is also one of the things that was spoken about with yesterday when this was being commissioned, that the government says it can no longer manage or handle the matter of fuel subsidy because of the amount we are spending, with regards to fuel subsidy. I'm wondering the kind of framework you would expect the incoming administration to put in place to addressing this matter. Now that we have a Dangote refinery on board, how would we be able to manage such that even though we are seeing a reduction in price, it is still affordable for the ordinary Nigerian?
In all honesty, Nigeria is paying a fair price for petroleum products, even when the subsidy is removed. If you look globally, the cost per liter of fuel is not, we're paying a fraction of what everybody else is paying. So we've enjoyed this blessing, so to speak, that has now become a curse. We can't afford it. It's not sustainable. And that is what encourages our fuel to be stolen and diverted out of the country. Because in all the neighboring countries around Nigeria, even as far as Mali, Cameroon, Niger, Togo, Republic of Benin, even Ghana, they are enjoying subsidies. So Nigeria has been subsidizing the entire sub-Saharan Africa region. So it's time for us to buckle up, block the leaks, and focus on a commercial sale and a commercial pricing of petroleum products so that we're at par with any other country, and the incentive to steal and move fuel out of the country illegally is curbed naturally.
All right.
Now, so the government needs to hands off and hands out of subsidizing, of being the sole importer of PMS. There's still stories of how you still have to get a license to go and import petroleum products. That need not be so. If everybody is attracted to the right markets and same markets worldwide, then there should be no advantage or disadvantage. NNPC currently gets the advantage of collecting US dollars from the central bank. They have no accountability mechanism to ensure that they're profitable. So they're bringing in and selling PMS at a loss. So not only are we selling a subsidized product, we're also making a loss in the importation. And it brings about a lot of corruption throughout the entire system. This is not the time to go into details of that, but the point is that government needs to hand off importation. They should not be the sole importer. There should be a level playing field where all the deals are done above the table in US dollars at the appropriate pricing. So if the only source of US dollars is the parallel market, everybody should go to the parallel market and get their dollars. One person should not go to the parallel market while somebody else is accessing US dollars at the CBN rate.
All right, it's quite interesting to know. Now, let's talk about what this means for the other refineries that we have always had, the Kaduna, Port Harcourt, LMA, Warri Refinery and all of that. Now that we have this and is going to be operating and has the capacity to serve Nigeria almost 100%, what does this mean for the other refineries we've always had?
Well, the other refineries have stopped production for many years. So we are not getting petroleum products from any of those refineries. It's the word out there is that some money has been dedicated to another turnaround maintenance. Between the year when the Blue Star wanted to buy the refinery, and now I'm sure we've had at least 4 turnaround maintenances and spent billions of US dollars, and we have had no positive result. So on that note, I think Nigerians should shut their minds and pretend those refineries do not exist and focus on what exists. I know there are some modular refineries, but they're largely producers of diesel for the local economy. So it's totally different. The specifications and the products they churn out are different from what the Dangote Refinery is. However, there are still others who are in the process of commissioning or building their own refineries. So I see more of this happening, and it's going to be exciting when we start fully producing all the different refineries at the same time, because we would be using probably less than 400,000 barrels a day. The volumes we have seen that are recorded as Nigeria's consumption are not Nigeria's consumption. They're consumptions of Nigeria and all the neighboring states around us. So I don't even see us using up to half of what the Dangote Refinery is producing. And then we have BUA that's still coming on board. And I'm sure there are several others that are coming aboard. So I think this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for Nigeria to become the Africa hub for petroleum products. So we would now start being a net exporter as opposed to being a net importer of petroleum products.
But the world is looking at transitioning to clean energy, and we are still having all of this refineries coming on board. How do we transition?
Okay, so one fantastic thing about Nigeria's crude oil is that it's a low sulfur crude oil. So the emissions from our crude is minimal. It's one of the best in the world. So a lot of people are buying our crude oils and are using our crude oil to blend their own crude oil to reduce the sulfur emissions into society. Two, in Africa and this side of the world, our carbon footprints are very low. We don't have the issues Europe has. So we have been brought into a conversation of low carbon footprints that we really shouldn't have any business having discussions about. So it's not a problem for Nigeria at all. Even if we wanted to go into renewables, it would be a small percentage of our energy mix. So we will have fossil fuel energy, which would be the oils and the gases. We can have solar, we can have wind, we can have renewable. We don't have to abandon what we have naturally. And I'm of the opinion that even our coal can still be used and inserted into our energy mix. So I don't think we have anything to worry about. We're so far away from refineries being redundant and moving on to other things. So I think we should enjoy the space. I'm sure we'll be enjoying it for, a good many years beyond even the lifespan of this Dangote refinery. So people who still want to build can still go ahead and build and make profitable their refineries, and they will continue to enjoy the benefits of it for much longer than is being purported.
Right. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you. We understand that Adeola Yusuf, our second guest, has joined us via Zoom. And Adeola, it's good to have you join us right now.
My pleasure, Mike. Good morning, Nigeria. It's
Great.
always a pleasure to be on the program.
All right. Now, everyone is talking about, the whole world is talking about the Dangote Refinery. Bloomberg has already given a rating to, in fact, just from yesterday, Dangote has moved up from 82 to 81 richest man now, courtesy of the Dangote Refinery so far. And there are projections that in the next 5 years, he could hit top 20 richest men in the world, as the case may be. All of that projections are going on, which is all prosperity and prosperity and prosperity. But let me ask you this. Dangote Refinery is a private entity. And when we hear that it is going to save government so amount of money, it is going to do that, how does the prosperity of Dangote as a private entity translate to Nigerian prosperity? Can you make us understand?
Okay, thank you very much. In about 3 ways, there is no way you will not benefit as a country, Nigeria as a country, from Dangote Refinery. For 2 reasons. Number one, Nigeria has 20% investment in that, gigantic project. Number two, Dangote, even though its asset is a private asset, is a Nigerian, and by the virtue of him being a Nigerian, there is no way you talk about Dangote and you won't talk about Nigeria. Then number three, if you allow me to, there is still further room for negotiation between the government and Dangote to increase our stake in that refinery. 5 presidents were in Nigeria from West African countries. They were in Nigeria yesterday to felicitate Nigeria to congratulate Dangote for that feat. Mind you, that asset, about $19 billion asset, is the biggest singular or largest singular refinery in the whole world. So that is epoch making, and Nigerian, the incoming government of President-elect Bola Tinubu has been talking about removal of subsidy, and there is no way with permutation on ground that the government wants to take that serious, take that step without proper talk, without proper discussion with Dangote Refinery. So by and large, head and tail, it is going to affect Nigeria, but depending, because it's important that I raise this caveat, depending on the further agreement or further negotiation between Dangote and Nigeria. Because as you have alluded to that fact while you are asking the question, Dangote Refinery is a refinery, by a businessman that is business-centric, that, understands the game. Mind you, he started this refinery because I was privileged when the foundation laying ceremony of that Dangote Refinery, was being done. I was privileged to be there. And part of the questions we asked Alhaji Aliko Dangote, which he answered, was that what was his motivating factor? What motivated him into going into, building a refinery from the scratch? And he talked about, you understand that during at the eve of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, he sold out, or he gave out, sold out those refineries, the 4 refineries we have in the country, based on the fact that they were moribund. They were in the state they are today, and he sold those assets. Blue Star, which is the company owned by Alhaji Dangote, was the one that won the bidding for the Port Harcourt refinery. But when former president, the late president Umaru Yar'Adua came on board, Nigerians went to meet him the way they usually do, to badmouth an investment that is thriving, and they told him that it's not a rocket science to revitalize a refinery. They told him that there are Nigerians that would do it, and so on and so forth. So based on that, he revoked the license given to the Blue Star, a company owned by Alhaji Aliko Dangote. And it was from that, because the man said he felt so, disappointed, and he just decided in his bedroom that he can start a refinery from the scratch. It's rather unfortunate that today, as we are speaking to you, you can't how many years back, the Port Harcourt refinery that was revoked from him is still at the state that it was. Now everyone is now talking about Dangote, being the one that will save Nigeria, from this investment. So it's important at this point to note that Aliko Dangote is a Nigerian that is, distinct. Is someone that understands, how to make Nigeria to be in the news for the good. But despite that, he's still a business entity. He's a businessman, and he has been able to assess that $19 billion. Some reports say $18.5 billion. From the market, from lenders. So as a businessman, every Nigerian should be talking about him getting return on his investment, because if care is not taken, everyone will just be thinking that we could hear people say we are now having the biggest refinery. That refinery is owned by Alhaji Aliko Dangote through his Dangote Group. Only 20% of that refinery is owned by Nigeria, but there is a room for further talk on how Nigeria can sort his investment or shares in that refinery.
All right, let me come to you now, Aderonke. I am wondering how, if an individual could achieve this as a businessman, why it is taking us so long, why it's been difficult for us to turn around our refineries, or it's been challenging to do the needful with regards to our refineries, from your point of view.
Okay, so the government has never been quite good at running commercial entities. And there is a precedence for this discussion and for this point. There was the LMA petrochemical plant that was built alongside the Port Harcourt refinery, just the same way the polypropylene plant is being built alongside this refinery that was commissioned yesterday. And for many years, in fact, in the entirety of the time the government owned the petrochemical plant, they were not able to make a profit from it. An Indian company called Indorama bought it over, and within a year, they started making a profit. The government had a stake, and a couple of states had stakes in there. They've been drawing dividends from that entity from the year that entity was sold. So it's very clear that government is not able to run commercial entities effectively, efficiently, or profitably. And that has been the case with all other ventures that government has run. And that was why the Bureau of Public Enterprise, I think it was in 2011 or so, decided to sell off the 2 refineries of the 4. There was the Port Harcourt Refinery 1, Port Harcourt Refinery 2, Kaduna Refinery, and Warri Refinery. The issue was that the sale was now reversed in the Yar'Adua era. For this whole period that we've been on this issue of we don't have enough refining capacity, the government have repeatedly invested money in refurbishing the various refineries, but we have not been able to get any value out of it. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a money-removing venture for some people or for some entities. And even at this point where our refineries are not working, all the staff are still in place, pensions are being paid, benefits are being paid. It's draining Nigeria of income because it's a sunk cost for us. Every
Yeah,
single
I can hear
time
you.
we put money into those refineries,
I
nothing
can
comes
hear
out
you.
of it. So it's time for us to divest from all the different investments that the government is making and trying to run commercial entities. So for me, it's important that we use this as another example to let government know that they need to hands off commercial ventures and allow either public-private partnerships or private entities to run these things.
We have seen, Aderonke has said, government has not proven to be a good businessman, especially on commercial basis. Now, but Dangote Refinery is here, and even making it bigger is something I feel that he would be looking into. You talked about Nigeria having a stake in the Dangote Refinery. Are you looking, or would you advise that maybe in the coming years, after operating for a few years, will become a publicly listed company for Nigerians to buy in, and even other companies and other countries to have a buy-in into what the refinery will be?
The Dangote model is quite unique. Every time he's gone out to do a project, he will complete the project beautifully. He would run it profitably for a while, and he will eventually put it on the market. We've seen it with the cement, we've seen it with sugar, we've seen it with the various silos of his business, parts of the group. So I don't see any reason why at some point in time he will not sell down some of the shares, hold and retain a bulk of it so that he can control the efficiency and the way it's being run. But I think it's something that we should look out for. Maybe in five years' time, he might decide to do that, and it will not only be open to Nigerians. Anybody anywhere in the world will be able to come in with their money into the capital market and purchase shares of the Dangote Refinery at some point in time if they follow the same model that they've used for all their other companies.
All right. We must thank you, Principal Consultant at DRNL Consult Limited, Aderonke Onadeko, as well as Energy Analyst and Team Lead Platforms Africa, Adiola Yusuf, for your time on the program.